I am live. Enjoy.
We stand on the edge of a whisper, our voices trapped deep and so low, but the words now rise like the oceans and the sadness that only we know. Woman, adult, human, female, not hard to define, but they twist and turn, they blur the line. Women's dignity discarded, our rage begins to build a tidal wave they can't conceive. Let women speak, let the truth ring clear. We've been shouting, but they refuse to hear. Breaking the silence, breaking the spell. We are the women. We're raising hell.
I actually asked this question. I actually shared that script. All right, let's see. There we are. All right, I'm new to this. Give me a break. Looks like I gotta get rid of that. Doesn't work very well. All right, so here we are. I'm rather proud of that little bit I did. It was actually coincidental that when it broke to in front of the Supreme Court, when they were hearing arguments for allowing boys that identify as girls being in girls' sports, it was like just coincidental. I'm like, oh, that's just perfect the way it worked out. All right, so if anybody's watching, we are hopefully going to debate several things. Right now, I got a buddy in the back. It's going to try to argue about God. Guess we'll just get to it. Welcome, Scott.
Hello, hello. It is
the stage.
God himself.
Yeah, that's what I heard. So what is going on? I also got I don't know if we finish this and nobody else has joined, then got something by Jay Dyer. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yes.
He released a new video today, which I'm sure he will prove God to me. So
Jay Dyer, but yeah, I'm going to refrain from saying anything. I'm not going to say a thing. I promise. I mean, I don't want to do that to you.
You think he's hot?
He's hot. He's hot. I got my drink on, so I think I'm going to loosen up my brain cells a little bit here.
All right. And if anybody's, I got to check my YouTube. Let's see. I guess I can. Yep, we're going through.
Oh, yeah, we're live, baby.
Yeah, I got one person watching. I guess it's me. I don't know. Do they count you when you're watching your own video?
I don't know. I don't think so. They may. Who knows?
Maybe it's you. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, no, I clicked off it.
Oh, okay.
I had to close the tab out because it was going to echo.
Use your phone or a computer?
Computer, laptop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is my old office, and this is the only time I come in here anymore. I sent a HDMI cable to my big screen TV, and I use that as my monitor.
Oh.
But you can't use a camera through USB splitter. So.
In my office is where I relieve myself.
Okay.
It's where I do my best meditation while I'm on the throne, on God's throne.
Yeah. Porcelain throne.
I'm on God's throne.
All right, demonstrate God to me. Go ahead. Dare you.
All right. So I'm going to take the positive claim that God exists.
GAW.
So here's how I'm going to, now the thing is though, you have to define God because you're the one who says God doesn't exist. So the burden of definition is for you because you have to know what you're denying. No, I'm just kidding. I'm acting like our boy Alejandro. Remember that shit? He would never define God. So anyways, I'll get to it. Okay. All right. So good evening, everyone.
Hello.
So tonight I'm going to be defending the proposition that God exists. But I want to be clear about what I mean by God, right? So I'm not defending the Christian God or anything like that. I'm defending a very simple image of a supernatural. I wouldn't even call it a supernatural being. I would just call it a natural being sitting somewhere or not sitting somewhere in the universe. You know, the position I'm defending is the idealistic conception of God, which is oftentimes referred to in Hinduism, the philosophical tradition, as Brahman. So in the tradition of like the Upanishads, Brahman is understood as the fundamental reality underlying everything that exists. It's not a being within the universe. Rather, it is the ground of consciousness and the precondition for existence itself. So what I mean by that is the key insight, you might say, behind the view is really simple here. So everything we really know about the world is going to come through our senses, our experience. So every scientific measurement, every observation, every thought we have about anything occurs within our consciousness. We never step outside of our awareness to examine a world that exists independently of experience. So all knowledge of reality, you could say, is sort of mediated through perceptions, like I was saying, sensations, and awareness. So I'm going to be appealing to philosophers from very different traditions that have recognized this point. So like, for example, Immanuel Kant, he argued that space and time are the forms through which experience is structured. We never encounter reality outside of the condition of consciousness, right? So he would refer to that as the noumena versus phenomena. So we have access to phenomena, but not the noumena. Similarly, modern idealist philosophers, like you could say, like Bernardo Kastrup, would agree that what we call the physical world may be better understood as structured patterns of experience within a unified field of, say, intersubjective consciousness or subjectivity. If that is the case, then consciousness cannot be a late byproduct of matter. Instead, consciousness must be fundamental on that view, right? So, and this is precisely where the God concept enters in here. In the non-dual philosophy that goes way back to like the Advaita Vedanta, the ultimate reality is called Brahman, and it's described as pure consciousness. And individual minds, which is different, individual minds are not separate substances. They're just localized expressions or modulations of that deeper field of awareness. So an analogy often used is the ocean and its waves. So each wave appears like a separate little process, but every wave is made of the same water of the ocean, right? Likewise, individual minds appear separate, but they really arise within the same underlying field of intersubjectivity. So on this view, God is not a supernatural object added to the universe. In fact, this view is born out of skepticism, not faith or anything like that. On this view, God is the ground of the universe or existence itself, the field of consciousness in which all experiences and physical phenomena arise. So this view also explains several features of reality. First, it explains why consciousness exists at all. So like the alternative is physicalism. Physicalism struggles to explain how subjective experience could emerge from purely mechanical matter or computation. This is often called the hard problem of consciousness. It's kind of a popularized term by David Chalmers, right? And second, it's going to explain why the universe is intelligible. The laws of nature and the mathematical structure of reality suggests that the world operates according to coherent patterns of information in order that we experience. It's part of our experience. So we co-modulate with that. And third, it explains why we experience a shared world. On idealism, the stability of reality arises from that intersubjective structure of a universal consciousness rather than from mindless matter that somehow produces minds. So the position I am defending tonight is this: the ultimate foundation of reality is not matter, it is consciousness. And the fundamental consciousness, that what the Upanishads call Brahman, is what many philosophical traditions refer to as God. So I have a little syllogism. Maybe you want to write them down. I don't know. Maybe you've got a good memory, you can remember, but it's basically about 6 premises and a conclusion. So the premise 1 is that all knowledge of reality, everything we can say we know about reality itself, occurs within consciousness. That's the first premise. The second premise: if something is known only through consciousness, then consciousness is epistemically prior to it. So that's the basis of the epistemology here. I think, therefore I am, you could say. Premise 3: a worldview that explains reality must account for what is epistemically fundamental. Premise 4: the flip side, materialism, treats consciousness as a product of matter, but does not explain how subjective experience could arise from purely physical processes. So this gets back to the hard problem. Premise 5: the most coherent explanation is that consciousness is therefore fundamental rather than derivative. Premise 6: if consciousness is fundamental and reality is shared and ordered, then there should be an underlying unified field of consciousness grounding individual minds and logic in all statements of what's possible and impossible. So my conclusion is, therefore, a fundamental universal consciousness exists, and this is what I'm calling God. So the definition here would be a fundamental universal consciousness grounding reality is what I'm appealing to, which is embedded in philosophical traditions that refer to this as God, or in the non-dual traditions of the Advaita Vedanta, Brahman. So that ends it for my opening. So we can go into whatever you want.
All right. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yep.
But what was number 2 again?
So premise number 2 is that if something is known only through our perceptions, then that means that consciousness, that our perceptions, the property of our perceptions is what we call consciousness. Then consciousness is epistemically prior to it.
To what? Knowledge of reality or perceptions?
Yeah, to all knowledge of reality.
All right. Well, this is bullshit, Scott. I won't be your friend anymore.
Oh man, we're gonna have to fight now.
Oh,
We have to block each other now.
You're frozen, and backstage you are blank. So I don't know what's going on. Oh, now you're moving. Now you're back.
Yeah.
Now you're back in the backstage thing.
Maybe I should take my screen off, but if it does it again, let me know and I'll turn it off.
I figured I'd put you at a disadvantage since I didn't see your pretty face during all that.
I don't even have no lipstick on tonight.
Well, let's see. So how conscious are animals?
How conscious are they? I look at consciousness as binary. So they're just as conscious as we are. And the reason I would infer that is because of behavior and because they're alive.
What about a worm?
I don't know, but I assume they could be because they're alive.
So I think you said elsewhere that you think the physical brain somehow acts as a conduit.
I would use that as a rhetorical device for certain arguments, but actually, on my view, the brain is simply an appearance within consciousness itself. So it's not really a conduit, so to speak. It's not like a radio or a TV, like some folks may want to argue. That's more like a dualistic sort of argument. I'm coming from a non-dual perspective.
Uh-huh.
So the brain is just an appearance within the screen of perception. It's what consciousness looks like from a third person point of view.
Okay. Told my wife I had plans at 10, and apparently she's calling me anyway. So just talk to the audience.
Oh, okay. So yeah, the way I look at brains is that they are appearances within our intersubjective experience. We all see brains, but it's a third party perspective. So the brain, what we see it doing is intelligence and behavior. But when I refer to consciousness, this is the core experience. The Brahman is the core experience locally. It's just the localized experience of a brain. It's the experience of all that processing and intelligence. So that varies among creatures. So there's a different kind of consciousness of a bat than a human. A human has a different quality, but we do share an experience, right? You know, if they are conscious, and I think they are, I just infer they are. It's nothing that would affect the view. But if we can assume that bats are conscious, then they would be conscious as a bat, as that mechanism, as that structure. We are of a different structure. We call it the human brain. The human brain and body, and of course all the context that our bodies, live in, contributes to our quality of experience. So what we do, what we learn, when we were born, where we were born, we just have an experience of sort of riding through life in this human form. But the human form and the brain and all that don't generate consciousness like that. This view is that basically we don't have consciousness. Consciousness has us. So that's kind of what that means. Anyways.
Yeah, you were frozen again and now you're not.
let me turn my camera off. That might help.
Yeah, she said she forgot.
She forgot.
Yeah, we have these new dogs and she's got to take care of two of them while I watch the one. And she wanted me to do it. She wanted me to take care of the two dogs because she's tired.
Gotcha.
So, okay, what happens when we die under your view?
On my view, I don't really know. It doesn't really, the way I'm approaching it, Logan, is I don't add to the story unnecessary stuff like life after death. This whole story like that's the difference between my view and Christianity or religions or something like that. I don't add any of those things to the story. So I don't necessarily believe, and truly I don't believe that there is such a thing as life after death. And I've got many reasons for that, but I don't think that really pertains to the argument. It's here. It would be a change of subject, but no, I don't necessarily subscribe to life after death.
What about before birth?
Or before birth either. I think, it for me, life, the way that we know consciousness, the only way we can know consciousness exists is through, of course, our own experience, but also we can reasonably attribute it to other life forms similar to us. So I assume and infer you are conscious. I don't know that. If I'm being really technical, I don't know that Logan's conscious. You could just be an AI generator. We could all be a brain in the vat for all I know. I can't prove that. We got the hard problem of solipsism there. So I don't pretend like this solves any of that. That's why I kind of keep it very, very parsimonious.
Because I would say I'm not really married. I mean, if you had to nail me down, I would be a materialist, physicalist, or I think there's a third one. And I don't really know the distinctions between all three of them. But, I'm somewhere in there, but I'm not really married to it. Yeah. I just haven't seen anything that would convince me otherwise. I think that's the advantage that physicalism has, is that where was my consciousness before I was born? It didn't exist. And where's my consciousness going to be after I die? It's not going to exist because it's all tied to a physical brain.
Yeah, the key word here is my, like the self. We get into, again, we go back to the Vedanta where we talk about the illusion of the Atman versus the Brahman. So the self for me is a story. The self is kind of it's a accumulation of memories, narrative, identifications, labels, like I'm a man, I'm a woman, for example. Those are not really true. That's why when it comes to, like, for example, like with the whole trans debate thing, like for me, it's kind of irrelevant because on my view, all of these identities are bullshit. All of these identities are made up imaginary things. We just make it up. We just create labels. All the language is like that. We just make it up. But the one thing that we're we can't really make up is that we're having an experience of something. And so we have this experience, and then we start to base our inferences on that. And so when we start playing the game of inference, well, all we can really do is compare, the best models that humans can develop. Like you said, there's maybe 2 or 3 different ways to kind of approach it. Well, we can compare among those things and decide for ourselves what seems to make more sense. And so for me, it seems like my view, the reason I took this view is because it's easier to explain. It's more parsimonious. I have less hard problems. Actually, I don't really have that much hard problems at all, because again, I'm basing everything on the premise of everything I know is based on being conscious. So, for example, the hard problem of consciousness. Why is that a hard problem? The problem is hard because on physicalism, what they're saying is that you've got 2 different things. You've got the tangible, inert, unthinking, just deterministic, cold, mechanistic matter. And then consciousness is that other part. Consciousness, so they'll say, well, that cold, unthinking, mechanistic matter creates or generates consciousness. And it does that. And there's different stories they'll tell you. Some people say, well, it's just complexity. If you just combine enough of that dead, unthinking matter, somehow a conscious experience of what it's like to be that matter will arise. Somehow. They never tell you how. They just say, look, it's correlated though. Like when we look at brains, we look at people, we infer they're conscious. We look at ourselves, we infer we're conscious. If I drink alcohol, like I'm doing now, I change my quality of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And we can trace logically that alcohol gets in my bloodstream and it affects certain parts of my brain that dull in certain things in my brain, like motor function, for example. So obviously there's a strong correlation there. If you cut my head off, I won't be conscious anymore. If you destroy that brain, there's no longer any consciousness there. But here, that argument seems very logical. It seems very kind of common sense on the face of it. But if we're consistent, if we're really consistent, we would think that radios and TVs, produce Michael Jackson music because, hey, it's playing Michael Jackson's Beat It. But as soon as I take that antenna off, somehow it affects the music. Therefore, obviously, radios generate Michael Jackson music. But we have the benefit in this case of knowing that doesn't really work. So when we make the argument that brains produce consciousness because of that strong correlation, then we're kind of having a hasty generalization. We're making a fallacy there. We're making a very hasty generalization. We're saying it seems like this correlation is there. Therefore, but correlation doesn't equal production, right? That's just a logical fallacy. And so if we're going to just be very logical, we're going to have to leave it as an open-ended question. And then we're going to have to look at other things. We're going to have to look at, okay, if it's true that there's these 2 categories, the thinking matter that decides things, have feelings, expresses love and hate and all of these, spectrum of emotions and things like that, but rocks don't. So you've got 2 different things. So you're still stuck with that question. How do you explain that correlation without having a category error? You run into a category problem. That's why it's called the hard problem of consciousness. But if we just flip it and we say, well, if consciousness is fundamental, then that problem dissolves away immediately because there's no category to jump. There's no conceptual gap, right? And so it's sort of like flipping the worldview or the paradigm on its head. And then you can start looking at how we can actually test that and how can we actually produce evidence for that, you know.
Did you ever define consciousness?
No, I didn't define it, but I'll define it here. Great question. We always want to define our fucking terms when we do this philosophy shit.
Yeah, so we don't talk past each other.
Yeah. So consciousness for me is just raw experience. It's what the philosophers call phenomenal consciousness. It's just the raw data, the first person experience, what it's like to be something. So it's like the primary datum. That's what I'm calling consciousness, the experience.
Because I just wonder, now you're attributing it to animals as well, but I just wonder if we've gotten to this point because we have an ego. Because we all started as animals. And it's often said that animals know things, but they don't know that they know. Whereas we know that we know.
Yeah.
And, you know, under evolution, we were animals once. We didn't think beyond anything about getting laid and surviving and finding food. And we started developing. One philosopher I read said that he thinks what kickstarted our reasoning abilities is tracking, trying to figure out what this animal is, where it's been, what it's done. And he thinks that kickstarted our reasoning ability. And then eventually, you know, we get to written history and all that after all that's occurred. But even nowadays, they say that a person with no education still knows more than people back in ancient times. Is still more knowledgeable about a lot of things. Maybe worthless things, but so under my view, we reached a point where we started emphasizing these traits, and it resulted in, this is actually just off the top of my head right now. I wonder if neuroplasticity played into that, and it started developing our brains to do things beyond survival and worrying about procreating.
Abstract.
Yeah.
Yep. I love that topic. I love the evolutionary how you can track all of that stuff, which is very, for me, there's no reason for me not to believe that at all. Like for me, I just call that meta conscious. So you've got phenomenal consciousness, which is just the core experience of beingness. It's just experiencing what it's like to be something. So you could be a fruit fly, like a very simple fruit fly, which only has so many neurons. Well, there's something it may be like to be a fruit fly, but the fruit fly doesn't do the things humans do, because humans have evolved brains, where our brains were evolved from the environment to have fitness payoffs, just like any other animal brain, right? So we are a product of fitness payoffs in nature, and our intelligence is what we call meta. It feeds into what we call meta conscious, because we have layers upon layers of feedback loops in our structure of our brain. Like our neurons are cascade throughout the different hemispheres of our brain, and they sort of allow us to expand into different forms of intelligence to do different things. But that same core experience is always there. It's like, you could look at it this way. Suppose we could magically take out neuron by neuron to where we could sort of say, well, now I'm going to turn you into a monkey level intelligence there, Logan. Well, then you'll start doing stuff like a monkey. You'll start using sticks to forage into the trees to get ants to eat and stuff like that. And you'll start behaving like a monkey. But you're still going to have that. You're still going to feel like I'm still Logan. I'm still me. I'm still the experience of this monkey doing these things. Then we take out more neurons and we bring you to the level of, say, a fucking, I don't know, a dog or something. Well, you're still going to be Logan. You're just going to be dog Logan. You're probably just going to know very rudimentary things, whatever, do dog stuff. But that experience of being a dog is still there. That core experience is just reflecting that brain pattern. It's just reflecting that pattern. And all of these patterns exist within that conscious experience. So it isn't like consciousness evolves. It's more like the physical structures of the brain evolve and the intelligence evolves along with it. So you're able to do more stuff because you've got better equipment. You know, it's like I can run Windows 90, you know, I can run Windows 95 on a PC, you know, but it's only going to do Windows 95. It's never going to do, you know, Windows 11 or whatever, right? Yeah. So, but for us, that operating stays the same. Like we're always experiencing that reflection of whatever form we happen to be in. Hopefully that makes sense.
So in Hinduism, they want to achieve nirvana, which is letting go of ego and recognizing that yourself is the same as the Brahman. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, yeah, that's right. So there's ways to achieve that state. The Brahman is an unlimited consciousness. Like the human mind is limited, whereas that part of us, we can experience unlimitation, no limitation at all. It's very easy. You can do it right now. You can do it right now.
But you wouldn't be you then, right?
Yeah. No, you wouldn't be you because again, the self is a story and it's part of that mind. Like the mind is the you, the self, the story, all of that stuff is a product of limitation, the limited human mind. It's constrained. Whereas Brahman level consciousness, like pure consciousness, is unlimited. And we all have access to it at any moment, at any time.
Does your view address how our universe came into existence?
Yeah, so this is a really good, I'm glad you brought that up, man, because that's something that really, this is probably part of what me and Joel were on about, which kind of turned into a lot of drama. Anyways, well, see, here's the thing I was trying to say about that. When we talk about things coming into existence, right? That denotes time. Causation is a product of time, right? So if you think about that, if we were to use like Hume's problem of causation, he admits that the most skeptical position is to say that we don't know about causation. All we know is about relations. And within experience, we attribute causes to all these things. And so our mind or our brain makes sense of relations, and we have this label called causation. But then even in science, even in the hard sciences, like say general theory of relativity, time and causation aren't necessarily fundamental. Time is actually relative based on the observer. based on what positions you're in, speed that you're moving, all kinds of factors of your experience that affect that. So causation isn't necessarily a thing because time isn't necessarily a fundamental thing. In fact, if you look into quantum mechanics, you can look at time and causation as non-existent in the way we understand it. There is no time in the quantum field. Quantum fields are eternal. Yet quantum fields, the excitations of the field is where we have all these physical things we experience. And time is part of that. So to say that, consciousness caused time would be sort of nonsensical. It'd be kind of incoherent. So it would probably be better to say that the universe is just eternal. There is no real cause to it. There's no real, everything that we think about are just artifacts of our limited mind. We make sense. It's a useful fiction, put it that way, saying that there's a beginning, there's an end, there's causation of this, cause that. But we know on different fundamental levels, science and philosophy can tell you that that's probably not accurate.
What are you doing? So, how did the universe in its current form come about?
It is just the way that we as observers make sense of it. So there's no, the question may be a little off. It's kind of like saying what's north of the North Pole. It's one of those kind of questions. It's like, it's not really a question that makes sense, if you will, on that level. Like, that's why when, say, you talk to someone like Lawrence Krauss or some other cosmologist and you ask them, well, how did the universe begin? They can't tell you that because all they can do is just observe things and look at the relations and sort of tell a story about, well, there's an expansion that we can trace in our observations, right? And they change all the time, by the way. So there's no real capital T truth on that anyways. It's all just an estimation. It's all just based on, usefulness, functionality. What use does it? And it has usefulness. Science has a lot of usefulness, but it's all inference. It's all inference. But all of those inferences happen within consciousness. You're never outside of that to say what it really is. We're all kind of locked in. Come on, man. Give me some good ones. Give me some challenge here.
I'm rereading all your, well, I'm still not.
What's holding you up? What is lacking in that view, in your view? Could it be like, let's say this, if we assume that, you're not just, because we're all a product of our culture, our language, and, our culture and language is very dualistic. It's causes and effects, it's ups, it's downs, it's bad, it's good. It's this, it's that. That's very dualistic. And our language and cultures reflect that. And then our science and, our paradigms, even though they change all the time, which should be a clue, but, we're kind of locked into our culture and stuff like that. Any problem you may have with a view like this, is it possible that the problem is really that you're sort of just kind of presupposing, I hate to use that word because it reminds me of Christians, but you're sort of presupposing a worldview and then you're judging everything based on that worldview?
No, it's not a presupposition. It's more just a recognition of what I've experienced. And to me, still haven't explained how this all works. I mean, is the Brahman or the fundamental universal consciousness, is it deciding to give you a piece of itself?
No, it's not deciding in the sense of metaconsciously saying, I'm going to sit. What do I need to do today? Oh, I know what I should do. I should probably become a human or a dog or a butterfly in order to experience myself. It's not like that on my view. On my view, that's what it does. So it's just like with materialism, like on materialism or physicalism, you could ask that same question. Like, why is the universe this way and not another way? And someone will tell you, well, it just is what it is. And while that sounds tautological, we don't have any choice. And for me, I don't see any problems with tautologies because, I mean, if you think about it, reality itself is a tautology.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean?
At a basic level, you have to resort to tautologies. Exactly.
And that's where we're going with it. So I don't see why I would see it as a problem.
Yeah, that's what's holding me back is just I'm not really sure how that works and what the motivations of the FUC is.
Yeah.
Fundamental universal consciousness.
Yeah. Well, I would say that when you look for motivations, you've got some choices. Your motivations can be political. Your motivations can be emotional, like just wanting certain things to be true. Or your motivations could be based on things you know, things you absolutely know to be the case, or things you have a high certainty for. For me, I appeal to the latter. I appeal to building an epistemology based on what I do know. And the one thing I can't doubt is that I'm conscious. And so I base my entire worldview on that, because anything I know is going to be within the screen of perception.
Well, yeah, and that would be true on materialism as well.
Exactly. But the problem with materialism is they have no logical link or conceptual link from the dead matter, the unthinking, cold, mechanistic universe, to the experiential flip side of reality. So I've studied now. I'm not sitting here saying like as if there's no models out there for that. There are. Like there's stories we can tell about called panpsychism. And they'll say, well, the conceptual gap goes away if we just say that everything has a little bit of consciousness in it. Every little atom has like this consciousness particle in it, right? The subatomic consciousness particle. And if you just combine enough of the atoms together that makes up chairs, stones, people, and everything else in just the right way, then that consciousness particle will add up into a unified experience. But that's just a big hand wave, because first of all, we have no evidence of a consciousness particle. We have no way to solve the combination problem, which is a logical fallacy that would say if you just combine enough consciousness particles together, a unified experience will pop out. How do all these unified particles come together to make a unified thing? It's a problem. It's a well-known philosophical problem, and it isn't solved. It's called the combination problem. But materialism has that same problem, except on steroids, because they don't even have the consciousness particle. They just have nothing. So essentially what they're saying is something comes from nothing. Now, luckily, I'm an open-minded person. I'm willing to bite the bullet that we may live in a magical universe. But all I'm saying is don't deny that, experience emerging from dead, unthinking matter is not magical thinking, because it is. It would be magical thinking. Because how does something come from nothing? Now, if it does, if somehow we could prove that stuff does come from nothing, then I'm willing to, change my mind on that. But for now, magic is defined as stuff being, it's like, for example, a magic trick would be something like a rabbit coming out of a hat. It just comes from the hat. You just pull the rabbit out of the hat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no hatness in the rabbit. There's no rabbitness in the hat. So there's no explanation. That's what makes it a magic trick. You're getting something totally unrelated from something totally unrelated, And so we call it magic, something from nothing. You're pulling the rabbit out of the hat. That's what it means. So consciousness coming from cold, mechanistic, unthinking matter seems to me to be that form,
Well, that would go back to my we're special critique. It's just that we think we're somehow special and that we're conscious. And we can't, so far, we can't explain that on physical terms. So I'm going to, I guess, ultimately, Scott, the way I kind of look at this is an argument from incredulity.
Yeah. I understand that. And that cuts both ways, though,
Well, you're saying there's a essence that we can't detect. If I do a scan of Scott, it's all physical stuff that we're aware of. There's no mystery element there.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it?
Yeah, I say it's phenomenal consciousness. So the essence is simply the what it's like qualia, the quality of being. So there's a quality of being that we can't deny. So in other words, we can't measure it in a lab. And so if you can't, that what you're describing is a principle in science called verification.
Mm-hmm.
There's a verification principle that has to always be met. But, that philosophy, that science philosophy got dropped a long time ago out of the textbooks, because philosophers eventually came in and pointed out that, verification says if you can't verify it, test it, observe it, make predictions, this and that, then it's meaningless. It just doesn't mean anything. I mean, it's just a belief, right? Sounds good at face value. But what philosophers of science pointed out was, how do you verify the verification principle? So you run into a big, hard problem. And so they kind of dropped that. So now that's kind of old hat. But it's still something that laymen oftentimes resort to because they're not familiar with that issue. They don't think about it long enough to see the problem with it. But it's helpful to point that out, to say that, just because you can't verify something in a laboratory under special tools and this and that, doesn't mean that it's not real. Things can be real and not exist. So like here's another caveat I would say, like in your challenge, because it says, does God exist? Well, existence is a funny thing, isn't it? Because you may see the color red right now, but does that color red really exist? Now it's real. You really feel it. It's really there, but does it really exist? So That's a category, another category problem. And so God or Brahman may be in that category of things, category of non-things, you might say, non-existent things that are nonetheless real.
So you said you think your worldview is parsimonious, right?
Yes.
Isn't it less parsimonious than naturalism?
Well, I'm a
That-
naturalist. I'm a naturalist. So
Okay.
on my view, consciousness isn't supernatural.
Okay.
Actually, consciousness is just part of what nature is. It's like nature is the word we describe reality as. You know, it's natural. And anytime science or philosophy or anything has discovered something that we once thought was supernatural, it just became part of the natural world. You know, like the tides, you know, used to be, or lightning, for example, used to be thought of as being thrown down from the clouds of Thor, like a supernatural story. But we now know that it's just, you know,
Yeah.
a relation. It's just static static and blah, you know, weather and blah blah.
But even though we didn't know what it was, it could still be observed and we could see the effects.
Yeah, that's right.
And you can't do that with consciousness.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Because you had mentioned something earlier. You talked about brain plasticity.
Yeah.
So consciousness, experience, learning, practice, you know, things you learn, you practice, those experiences have what we call physical effects onto the matter of the brain, what we call the matter of the brain. So even that appearance of the brain is affected by the experiences that we have. So that proves that there's something going on. That experience is real. You know, like John Searle, the philosopher John Searle, he mentions that all you have to do is raise your hand and you can see consciousness at work. You know, the modes of consciousness are things like intentionality, creativity, observation, predictions, feelings, emotions. All of these things have a physical consequence onto your body. If you really get upset enough, long enough, you can, you know, increase your cortisol levels and eventually cause your own demise. You know, you'll have a heart attack or something eventually. But, you know, in some people, there's the placebo effect. There's some people that can believe things, you know, genuinely enough that they have real effects on their experience or on their condition, right? And so those also are examples of where consciousness is sort of has a measurable effect.
I was just checking if neuroplasticity is even heritable, and it's partly heritable.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what I think.
So here's another thing to consider.
But I mean, well, let me
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You're okay. So you say consciousness is natural, and even though me observing me lifting my right hand is still explainable under my view. It's just a reaction of my brain telling my nerves what to do, and my muscles react. So you're still adding something that to me makes it less parsimonious than materialism, regular naturalism, or physicalism. That's what they are. It's physicalism, materialism, naturalism. That's what they are. So you're still adding something to it, which to me makes it less parsimonious than this is all there is. There is no consciousness outside of certain living beings. If we all did not exist, there would be no consciousness anywhere. It would just be an inert universe that's full of non-thinking things.
Yep, I agree.
Oh, you agree? But you just so
yeah, I agree. If there were not, again, let me repeat that.
Okay.
The Brahman, there's a difference here. There's Brahman and there's Atman. Atman are those, conscious beings like you and me. If we all died today and no conscious beings existed anywhere in the universe, Brahman would still be there. That underlying experience of being is still there. And so on my view, that doesn't follow. But you said something interesting. What was it? Can you repeat that again? You said, about the parsimony.
Parsimony, yeah.
Yeah. So when you say parsimony, you say, well, there's a physicalist story that says that the brain can send signals to your nerve fibers and your muscles that cause you to move your arm and this and that. Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. Like that's obviously the case. You can measure that. So what am I adding into that story? Well, the only thing that you already agree with, if you raise your hand, there you notice a difference between raising your hand and not raising your hand. So there's an experiential quality with raising your hand. So although we can tell that story of the neurons firing and the muscle movement and the intention, there's also an experience that's embedded in all that. And that experience isn't an add-on. It's just part of it. It's the other side of the coin. It's just part of that. There's an experience of moving your arm that the neurons can't explain. The neurons can explain the behavior, but it doesn't explain why is there an experience along with those neurons firing. That's the hard problem of consciousness. And I wanted to bring this up too.
We have that experience because we feel our body moving.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I feel
that's
from my
right.
shoulder, from my shoulder, you see my head moving a bit when I move my arm.
Can you imagine any sort of thing that can raise its arms and do stuff without an experience along with it? Like, I know it's kind of incredulous, but can you imagine some kind of being or device or something that actually does stuff intelligently, but it's not conscious? Can you imagine anything like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I could see a sophisticated robot that is in no way conscious, but it still has a processing memory core that knows it will damage itself if it falls over. It may not care if it damages itself, but it knows it will damage itself as it falls over.
So do we have to add anything in order for that robot to experience its malfunctions and its movements and stuff?
Well, it doesn't experience them.
Right.
It happens to it, but it doesn't experience them.
Exactly. That's my point, is that all of this stuff could go on in the dark, yet we have this experience that goes along with all of our movements and malfunctions, unlike the robot. So it's kind of like, it's like on physicalism. So here's an experiment. We live in a really great time, Logan. We live in 2026 right now as two old fucks. We're not old farts yet. We're old fucks. Okay. An old fart is somebody who can barely get up and walk around. We're not like that yet. But we're old fucks. So as old fucks, we live in a different time than back in the 70s and 80s. So recently, there was a prediction made in science. And they said, you know what we're going to do, man? We are going to map out the entire the entire fruit
Genome?
fly brain
Oh, okay.
and even connect it to a virtual body that behaves like a real fly completely. Every single neuron, which is easier to do because there's not that many neurons, right? But no one thinks the computer simulation is conscious. And what this reveals is the key issue. Replicating neural structure and behavior does not automatically produce experience. This gap is exactly what philosophers call that hard problem. So a computer can simulate rain, but it doesn't really make anything wet. You know, you can simulate an entire kidney on a computer, but it's not going to like pee on your desk, right? Likewise, simulating brain activity may reproduce behavior without producing conscious experience. So scientists have simulated an entire fruit fly brain and connected it to the virtual body that behaves just like a real fly. I mean, it looks for food, it behaves, it goes places, it does fly things. But no one says that this fruit fly is really an experiential thing. Now, they predicted it should. Materialism predicts that replicating neural structure should produce consciousness because that's the worldview. But the simulation turns out not to be conscious. And this strongly suggests that consciousness cannot be explained as a byproduct of matter. And this supports the idealist view that consciousness is more fundamental than that.
Well, isn't there more to a person than just a brain?
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yep.
I think without the rest of the body, of course, it's going to be hard to reproduce everything.
I would even go farther than that. I would say that, you know, there's an environment you have to keep in, you know, for me, that's where we can keep shifting the goal. Like I saw a recent episode with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he said, look, man, and he's always been a proponent of materialism. You know, he's always said that, you know, if you just simulate the brain down to its minute detail, you should out pop consciousness. I mean, it's obvious. Like if the brain is, if thinking and experience, if experience and consciousness is just what the brain does, then it's a no-brainer, pardon the pun, is what he said. He said you should just be able to simulate every single neuron and then it will have an experience. That's what follows logically. But as it turns out, it doesn't. It doesn't really do that at all. Like we can simulate the brain of fruit flies, and you know, they're doing humans next this year. And I want to see how that turns out. But they said based on the studies with the fruit fly, all it really does is mimic behavior. It doesn't really show conscious. There's no signs of consciousness there. As different with regular embodied fruit flies. So like you said, they'll push the goal. And you know, in that interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson, he was talking to one of these, I think David Chalmers actually. And he was like, David Chalmers was like, yeah, well, maybe consciousness, you need like the biology part. You need all those things too. And Neil deGrasse Tyson was like, yeah, but you guys, you keep on pushing the fucking goal. You keep shifting the goal. Like, why does it keep moving? Like he says, first it was the Turing test. First, that was the whole thing. If it just passes the Turing test. Well, now we've done that 3 times over. And it's still not conscious or real intelligence or whatever. And they're like, oh, well now, oh, no. What we need to do now is we need to replicate every neuron in a being and replicate it. Then we'll get there. Then we did that. And then Neil deGrasse Tyson is like, yeah, well, we did that too. And it's still not conscious. And now you're saying, oh, well, we just need to add this other thing. He's like, when are we ever going to get to the key ingredient? Where is that magical ingredient? So now Neil deGrasse Tyson has just thrown his hands up and said, you know what? I think consciousness just doesn't exist. He says, I just think it's not real at all. I think it's just a problem with our concepts. He says, I think at this point, there is no hard problem of consciousness because consciousness is just an illusion. It's not real. It's not something we can, talk about as in everything else, right? So he goes, maybe that's just it. Maybe we're just wasting our time with this whole AI trying to see if maybe one day it'll be conscious. He says, that's just bullshit. It's because you keep moving the goalpost. It's like, how many goals do we have to move? And so he says, I'm at the point where I just think there is no consciousness. Like, what about that? But David Chalmers points out, yeah, but if you have an illusion, you have to be aware of who's having the illusion. Like, having an illusion presupposes consciousness. You're not getting around the problem that way. He says, I've already been down that road. Like, you can't do that either, because even an illusion is just another mode of consciousness. Like, so Neil deGrasse Tyson's like, well, man, I don't know. I think maybe it's just brains trying to explain brains. And since brains are limited, they'll never explain brains because it's brains trying to do it. And, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that thinking. Yeah, it's just like I said. I think it's granted, you think at least all living objects have consciousness of some sort. But a lot of
Say
people.
That again?
You said that you think all living creatures have consciousness of some sort, right?
Maybe it's easy to infer. I mean, I'm not saying I know that to be the case.
Okay,
It doesn't hinge on my view. Like my view, maybe we humans are just special. Maybe we're the only conscious thing in the world.
Yeah,
maybe that's the special thing. Maybe we're but for me, I'm not comfortable with arguing from specialness because for me, I'm suspicious of that.
Right.
I don't think consciousness is that special at all. I think consciousness is just like anything else. It's just what it is. That's why I say it's fundamental. It has nothing to do with human specialness. It has to do with reality. And when I say fundamental, like, for example, somebody like, I think this was hanging Joel up too for a while, is he was saying, well, when you say consciousness is fundamental, he goes, I'm kind of suspicious of that because it's almost like, here's a mystery, a thing we can't explain. So we're just going to stick it into the fundamental file because we can't explain it. And then the problem goes away. How convenient, And he goes, and that's kind of how I see your view. You're just trying to do that. But the thing is, he goes, that for him, he goes, and you talk about emergence as magical thinking. He goes, what's more magical thinking than to say consciousness is fundamental? I mean, that's like the epitome of magical thinking. Like, it don't get no more magical than that, buddy. But my thing is, if that's true, if saying something fundamental is magical thinking, then that means mass, spin, charge, quantum fields, time, space, gravity, all these things are also magical thinking that scientists created, right? Because those are considered fundamental. And he's going, oh, so what do you really mean by fundamental then? Are you saying it's like mass, spin, and charge? And I'm like, exactly. Uh-oh.
I just my lock came off.
Oh,
from my leaning back.
All fundamental means is that it doesn't have to be explained in terms of other things. In other words, it's not something that you can reduce it to. Like, consciousness is irreducible. Experience is irreducible. It's just what it's like for things to happen, for things to be. It's just the beingness of it. That's the definition that meets that criteria. But I think the hesitancy for a lot of philosophers to consider consciousness as fundamental is because it kind of leads towards this concept of God or Brahman. And that's not something that we've traditionally ever, for the last, since the Enlightenment, it's not something we're willing to, posit because of culture. and paradigm. And what I'm saying is, while I understand that, maybe, just maybe, we humans don't know it all. Maybe we humans can redefine God in a way that makes sense. And you don't have to believe in, you don't have to use that. I mean, the word God, Brahman, those are just words. They're just labels. What we're really talking about is what's fundamental, fundamental beingness. And part of that beingness is that field of experience, that possibility to experience as this thing or that thing.
But mass can be measured, right?
Yes.
So that's not like consciousness. It's not magical thinking, because at least it can be measured.
It's measured by behavior, and so is consciousness. We know, for example, when I infer that you're conscious, it's because I see you yawning.
Yeah.
I see you talking. I see you doing all the things I do. Like, I see you behaving. So I infer reasonably that you're that's how I measure consciousness. In other words, we have to measure consciousness. Otherwise, anesthesiologists would be up shit creek. Like, they have to know when their patients are not conscious, or they're not aware. And so there's a break. They have to know how can we measure a break, and how can we measure a manifestation of consciousness? And there's several ways to do that. But basically, the easy way to say it is that there's just behavior. And that's the same with all of science. All of science is inference of behavior. Consciousness is funny, though, because, and I'll grant you this part. Consciousness, by definition, is subjective. Science, by nature, is objective. And so you're never really, so there's already a problem. You're never going to have an objective accounting of a subjective first-person experience by nature, by definition. But what we have going for us is that we know it exists, because each of us are conscious. Now, there's no scientific evidence of consciousness. There's only inference. There's only behavior. It's inference. But really, all of science is kind of inference. But, it isn't the same kind of evidence, say, of other things, I would admit.
Well, I'm not really
ready to go to church.
I'm not really well versed in idealism and stuff, even though I've listened to you guys.
I know.
Would you say that have you read the article on Stanford Encyclopedia?
I've read many articles.
Oh, I mean, on idealism specifically.
Yeah, there's different flavors, and there's different ways of looking. There's Berkeley's idealism. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. There's Brahman, the Eastern wisdom tradition of it. There's analytical idealism, which is like what Bernardo Castro was mainly. I kind of maybe more or less empathize with that.
Oh, we got somebody.
Yeah, alive into him.
God exists and you know it. Your private conscience bears witness.
He knows you better than you know yourself.
No reason for private guilt. Do you want to come in live and explain all that to us?
That would be all.
It's all right.
Put that link back up there.
Yeah. It's all right if you don't. But if you do,
make it more interesting, because I'm over here just being a chatterbox.
How do I? Oh, there it is, down there. Share your referral link. What? No, not that. What is private guilt? Where are you getting from anything from what we said is private guilt? How do I share this?
Yeah, my view doesn't entail guilt at all. Guilt is just another object of experience. It's part of the narrative of self, so it doesn't really apply.
Where do I share this, Scott? How do I find how to share it?
So yeah, you go to your you see that little plus with the screen, or no, I'm sorry, yeah, I don't have the same thing you do, but before that, there's like this thing where you can press, where you can add invite code, stuff like that, and you just copy and paste that code and put it in your live chat.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, I got it now.
Copy button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You still there, love? You haven't told us what's this private guilt that you I don't know what private guilt you're talking about. Do I have some? Yeah, but I haven't mentioned it on stream.
Why does all talk of God ultimately lead to guilt and all that kind of shit? I don't understand. That's that Western, thoughts of how God is supposed to be, Oh, you're going to make God mad. Oh, you're going to make God sad. You should feel ashamed. Sin, retribution, vengeance, all that kind of stuff is entailed in the Western narrative of God. I just don't see why that should be added into the story. Like, how do you know all that?
Well, how do you think, how would you say conscience doesn't necessarily bear witness to God existing?
How does private consciousness not bear witness?
I said it doesn't necessarily entail that.
Yeah. God exists and you know it. Romans 1:1.
Yeah.
Or 11:1, whatever.
Precepts are fun.
Yeah.
I've been asking questions in a Facebook group called Defending Presuppositionalism, and none of them have been able to answer my questions. They're just like, that's a dumb question. No, it's not.
See, the precepts, what I don't like with them is that, they kind of engage you dishonestly because they automatically want to stick you into a frame of having to explain how you know anything without God, and just presuppose that, all of your knowledge of stuff comes from just, your opinion, but you have no grounding, but then you say, what I usually do is I say, okay, you're right. I agree. I agree with you. You're right. Now, how do I know Jesus walked on water again? See, they don't want to go there. They don't want to talk about their book.
Yeah.
They don't want to go into that part. They just want to stick to that other part. And they want you to disagree because it's kind of like, how do you like them apples? Have you ever heard that joke? It's like in, you ever seen that movie, with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, one of their first movies. You're a movie guy too.
Well, I know. Talking about the one with Robin Williams.
With Robin Williams, yeah. Remember the scene when he gets all his friends and goes, "Hey guys, watch this," and he goes and he gets the girl's number and he throws it up against the, or he goes up to the guy in the window and he says, "Hey man, you like apples?" And the guy's like, "Yeah." And then he puts the number up on the window. "Well, how do you like them apples?" And everybody's like, "Wow, you're awesome." But do you realize that whole thing hinged on him liking apples? Suppose he said, actually, no, I don't like apples. The joke wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
What do you mean you don't like apples? Come on, this guy, man.
You like bananas? You like strawberries?
You like bananas? It's like with the precepts, their whole thing hinges on you not agreeing with that. They don't ever want you, really secretly, they don't want you to say, "Okay, you convinced me. Now let's talk about the book." They don't want to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. It doesn't get you to the Christian God.
That's right. But
I
yeah,
guess
man, I wish somebody would call in to debate you, man.
I guess AI love isn't going to do anything. Somebody's still here. I still have two viewers. Don't know if it's still AI love or somebody else. Yeah, I think next time I'm going to go over that Jay Dyer thing. I'll send it to you. You can watch it ahead of time. And
Yeah. So is that a debate you're having with Jay Dyer, did you say? Or
oh, no, it's just a video he put out.
Oh, okay, okay.
The argument for God, atheists can't answer tag.
Oh, yeah.
How tag proves God.
I like those videos. 5 things that'll stump your average atheist.
Yeah, he's got some symbolic logical argument that he never says what the well, sometimes he does, but he doesn't give the full thing, but what the symbols represent.
Yeah. Oh, God. You know, one thing they need to stop doing, I don't know why they keep doing this, but when they talk to unbelievers, why do they think that Bible scriptures are so powerful in their argument?
Yeah.
I don't get that part. Like,
Yeah, it's like,
yeah, why don't you just quote the Quran back to them?
Yeah, the Tao Te Ching or the Bhagavad Gita.
That's right. You can quote all that stuff right back at them. Well, that's stupid. I don't need to consider that. you get it now.
Now, the precept, of course, would say somewhere your position is impossible. I don't know where they would, but supposedly, I think Greg Bonson, who really popularized precept, I think in his book they said he does address Hinduism.
Yeah, I think if I remember right, part of their thing is you have to have a Trinity, because a Trinity, you see, the Trinity, what the Trinity does is it gives you the self-reflection aspect of God's nature. So with just one part of God, there's nothing to really pull God up by his bootstraps. But if you've got 3, then you've got the personal God. And then if the personal God is personal, then it would explain creation, explains, but you can only get that stuff on Christianity. Hinduism, like Brahman and stuff like that, are not, you know, it's a true monotheistic sort of thing. And it's not only that, but it also entails, you know, people themselves being an aspect of God, you know, conscious as a piece of consciousness, kind of like like these color prisms. You know, you shine like a bright white light into a prism, the prism will split off into different colors, and those different colors are expressions of that same source light. And that's how Hinduism sort of looks at Brahman versus Atman, you know. But for the precept Christian, that's just not going to do, because, you know, for reasons.
Except they do have a Trinity.
Yeah. And then they forget that the Trinity is pretty illogical.
Because there's Brahman, and then there's Brahma and Vishnu and Shiva.
Yeah. Those are expressions, though. Not that I'm a Hindu. I'm not.
Right.
Let me make that case. I'm not a Hindu, but I'm just saying from their worldview to steel man them. I think that all the different gods, and it's not just those. It's like actually thousands of gods, but those gods are usually considered expressions like what's the word that fucking Jordan Peterson always used? What's that word? Archetypes. Yeah, archetypes of different things about reality, and we just sort of emulate them as monkey god, or, you know, this or that, whatever.
Consciousness. What have you ever listened? I don't listen to him a lot. Has he ever stated his position on consciousness?
Who?
Jordan Peterson.
Oh, Jordan Peterson. Not that I know of. I'd be interested to hear what he's got to say about that.
Well, he probably doesn't because it's hard to nail him down to anything.
Yeah, he's very slippery.
Yeah.
And I think it's because he doesn't want to get tied down to something that's gonna, he likes to have room for calibration.
Yeah.
He likes to calibrate his shit so that when people do come at him with objections or rebuttals, well, I never really said that now, did I, bucko?
and unfortunately, for his family and friends, he's apparently having issues, so we may never hear from him again.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what issues he's having, but I saw something like his daughter updates people on Jordan Peterson's health.
Oh, no. I knew he was having health problems in his family and himself even years ago. I guess it's coming back to haunt him.
In 2025, chronic inflammatory response syndrome, pneumonia, and sepsis. 5 months hospitalized. He's had other health issues such as benzodiazepine addiction, withdrawal, and according to his daughter, various autoimmune issues. So,
damn.
Yeah.
That's why I'm trying to spread my message now before that shit happens to me next.
And he has a strict all beef diet. Sorry, man. Your mama said eat your veggies.
Yeah, eat your vegetables, boy. Yeah, that's crazy. I know, I had a dialogue with Matt Dillahunty.
Did you?
Yeah, about this topic. And man, he got upset with me.
You called into Atheist Experience, or is that after he left?
No, it was when he was still there.
Okay. Oh.
And
you should find that for me.
Yeah, I'll try to look for it. I don't think it was Atheist Experience. I think it was that other show. What was it? There's another one he did that's on that same network.
Yeah. Talk Heathen.
Talk Heathen, that's the one. Yeah, I was on Talk Heathen. And because I wouldn't call it an Atheist Experience because they really shut you down.
Yeah.
But Talk Heathen, they're a little laid back. They kind of entertain more different stuff. So I figured I'd call, especially when Matt was there. And I called in and we started talking about consciousness. And man, that dude just went fucking ape shit, man.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck, dude. Excuse me. Oh my God. It's like, dude, there's a delay. I'm trying to get my point out and you keep cutting me off. And
yeah,
by the time you cut me off, I'm still talking and I can't hear that you cut me off,
Well, his problem is that he's talked to so many people. He always just assumes he's heard it already.
Yeah, that's what he was telling me. You think that this is new to me? You think I've never heard this bullshit before? I'm like, dude, we're having a conversation.
Yeah. And really the thing is, like, if I knew about idealism 100%, I would still let you talk because the audience may not know about it.
Yeah, yeah. But, he just didn't give me a chance and he just wanted to shut me down. And then he came with this one thing that was the one where he just, I think he hung up on me or something. But he was like talking about, because I had mentioned qualia came out of my mouth. Good Lord, why did I say that word? He was like, well, sir, I deny qualia. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. Can I finish what I was saying? He's like, no. Qualia is bullshit. I'm like, so you're saying that you don't have a quality of experience? And he goes, what do you mean? I said, do you know the difference between red and blue? He goes, of course. I said, that's qualia. You know what it's like to see red. You know what it's like to see blue. He goes, yeah, well, I've had just about enough of your bullshit, jackass. Click.
Wow.
I was like, damn. He cut me all the way off. Shut me down.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I'm like, God damn it. And then one time I called in as a Christian.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I was acting like a Christian. John from Florida. And then I ended up agreeing with him at the end because I just wanted to I guess I wanted to. Well, first of all, I wanted to test out my acting skills, but then the other thing I wanted to do was kind of just like teach people bad arguments why they're bad, and then let Matt win. You know, like I didn't want to make dumb. Like I wanted to concede at the end. You know, but I gave him a run for his. I tried to give him like the normal bad arguments, and man, he was getting so fucking upset, and the other guy was really getting upset. What's that guy, Eric, with the curly hair and I think he's Latino or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think he's on there anymore. But
Yeah, he's not on anymore, but he kept asking dumb questions, like real typical atheist talking points that didn't make sense. And Matt kept having to correct him. He was like, no, don't tell him that. That's not the right answer. Like, because he says, well, Scott, well, John, I have a book too. And it's called The Book of Eric. So why can't I just believe this book? Because it says so right here in the book that it's all true. So why can't we just go off that? And I said, well, because of history. And he goes, what do you mean history? I said, the Bible's older than that book. So I appeal to the book because of age and tradition and all of that. And then he goes, oh, that's stupid. And then Matt was like, no, actually, that's not stupid. He's actually giving you a philosophical precedent that stands up in philosophy. So,
well, good for him.
So at least he went for that. You know, he goes, let me handle this. You know, and he handled it. But Eric didn't know how to handle any of that shit. He was just like all over the place, throwing out those same talking points. Like, it was funny. Yeah, I'll try to dig those videos up if I can.
Yeah, they're fun. I've got my own somewhere.
Yeah.
Mine wasn't that good though. I was pretty embarrassed by it, but oh well. Well, I'm going to get off here and I'll re-listen to your syllogism and make sure I have it written properly. I was typing fast, and I'll look at it.
Here, I'll copy and paste it in the private chat.
Oh, okay.
Give me just a second.
I don't know if it will take all of it in one shooting.
It may not.
Yeah, AI Love, if you're still listening, you know, I plan on doing this weekly. I haven't decided on a day yet, but and the Mirror Point has their regular show on Saturday afternoons. You're welcome to touch base with them. And, if you don't want to come on stage, but you know somebody that does, please let them know about us.
We're here for it.
Yeah. and we're not mean. We're not like Matt Dillahunty or anybody.
No. Oh, and don't ever talk to Matt Dillahunty, like you said, about the trans stuff.
Oh, yeah.
They'll probably fucking blow a fuse on that shit, too.
Yeah, you can.
I think you showed me a video of that.
Oh, yeah. There's a few.
Yeah. Well, I put the syllogism in the private chat, so just...
Oh, in the private chat. I don't even see the private chat.
Yeah, it's at the top of the chat, of the live chat. You'll say private chat, comments, recording.
I see regular chat. Where is this private chat? Oh, there it is. Okay. All right.
Yeah, man. So I'm going to get off here too.
Select all. Can't do that. All right.
And I'm going to look for some other shows I can jump in and talk shit. See if I can troll somebody. I don't know if you saw that one. I trolled that atheist guy, Lorenzo, the black dude.
Yeah.
With the cowboy hat. Did you see that one?
Uh-huh.
Oh man, that was crazy.
Yeah, you had him going.
Yeah.
And he knew you too, right? He just didn't recognize your voice.
Remember me. That's right. All right, my man. I'm gonna dip on out, brother.
All right. Thank you for coming on. Otherwise, I'd have been all by myself, apparently.
You got him, Logan. We'll see you, man.
Later. All right. Well, if you watch this later, thank you. Comment, like, subscribe, all that good business. If you know Christians that want to debate certain topics, let them know. And that will be it for my first, hopefully, regular live stream. Later.